Hey everybody. Okay, so this is the second video I'm doing for y'all on, oops, lost my place, on what you wanted to talk about. Oh, did I lose it? Crap. Well, let's do this one. All right. I chose a couple of examples from stuff that I was reading currently to show you what it's like to put emotion into scenes or to show how a person feels rather than tell. Okay? So when I think of showing how a person feels, I think of you describing the face or the action that the person is taking or something that happens in the background sometimes will reflect on what the person is feeling. And sometimes, just describing their face is not enough. Sometimes it's a little bit more than that. So I've got a couple of examples. This one is actually, it's a book that I'm reading right now. It's called Mr. Geppetti's Most Remarkable Time Traveling Parties by Andrew S. Chaffee. He happens to be my nephew, but he's also a writer. So this is his sixth or seventh novel, and he keeps getting better and better. This one's very much a fantasy. I was very drawn into it. It reminds me of Erin Morgenstern's Night Circus. So if you like that, you'll like this. Anyways, there's a description here which shows the character's voice, and I wanted to read it to you so that we can kind of pick it apart. If the guns weren't enough, and the prospect of stepping quite imminently back to the Old West, the real Old West, wasn't enough, he now faced the fabled trunk with open invitation. It certainly was plain looking, a spitting image of a standard luggage character from the car that brought them in, not bigger than a steamer trunk, and no more ornate than his mother's knitting caddy. If he knew no better, he'd have sworn it was lifted from the pages of one of his father's old Sears, Roebuck and Company catalogs. There weren't markings other than a small brass plate stamped with Geppetto and Sons. He gave a good look to make sure the old man wasn't watching. He would have otherwise been insulted that he stepped into the changing room of Mrs. Veriano, but his measuring tape made things seem easy, innocent enough. Okay, so he's describing the trunk, and in the description of the trunk, you get some history of the character. You get his mother's knitting caddy, his father's Sears and Roebuck shipping catalogs, which also give you time. Not too many people right now have Sears and Roebuck's catalogs or knitting caddies, although my sister does. Whatever. And then you switch to the character giving a good look to make sure the old man isn't watching. You don't have to say, this kid is sneaky. You're showing it because he's looking to make sure the old man isn't watching. And then, he's doing something a little sneaky because he's got his measuring tape and he's not supposed to be in this woman's room. Another setting clue for you. So there's one description. Now, this is one of my favorite authors ever. Michael Ondaatje wrote The English Patient, which was made into a movie. He's also a poet. Warlight is a very different book. I'm sure I can open to any page and find a wonderful paragraph. Let me find a person. Okay, here's one. This is first person point of view. It's hard to describe a first person point of view emotions without the character seeming really sappy. So this is a wonderfully poetic way to do it. And like I said, this is Warlight, very skinny, very wonderful. You just kind of savor the sentences. It had felt like an unraveling dream, but the next day, arriving at Ruvigny Gardens again, he slipped me a paperback of Conan Doyle stories, and I began to read them. Yet although I was full of curiosity for answers to what was happening in our lives, There were for me no fog-filled streets or back alleys where I might find clues as to my mother's whereabouts or what Arthur McCash was doing in our house. Boom. That's a whole story right there in one paragraph. Do you see what he did? I mean, we don't play with dreams. I mean, dreams are trite. But when you say it felt like an unraveling dream, it's like, okay, wait a minute. This is a little bit different. And the next day, we get a paperback of Conan Doyle's stories, which at that time, this is World War I believe. Conan Doyle was new. Sherlock Holmes was, wow, let's read this. It's a hot commodity. So this kid, I think he's a young soldier, begins to read them and begins to get into the stories. But no matter how deep he gets into the stories, he can't forget that he's looking for his mother and what that man, Arthur McCash, was doing in the house. Wow. I just picked that out of nowhere. Okay, so what I would like to see you do is to really read with the eye of a writer and think about what this person is doing to make you feel for the character or about the story or in the scene. A lot of people who are beginning to write forget to include the senses. I've said this to you many times, and when you're describing a scene, you need those senses. So, okay, that's hopefully makes it a little bit more clear. And if you have any other questions, you know I'm up for Zoom anytime. Okay? All right. Talk to you later. Bye.